Randy Forbes. Congressman, great to have you.
Thank you, John. It's always good to be with you.
Great to see you on Monday, and we enjoyed your remarks. By the way, if you don't know, Congressman Forbes across Virginia, he's a key figure on the House Armed Services Committee. Preview Obama's speech tonight, Congressman. What are you looking for? What do you think will happen?
Well, John, what I think you're going to see is President Obama come in there and try to convince the country that the economy is just doing gangbusters, that everybody should be excited with where their jobs are and with what their lifestyles are, and how that we've got so much money now that he can just start all these new programs to give away more dollars to more individuals. And we all know, of course, a couple of things. One, that we always, before these State of the Union speeches, we hear the pundits coming out trying to spin it for the president. The reality, John, you and I know when we hear all these individuals in our local restaurants and places where we talk to them, most of America is going to tune the president out because they just feel like the president's tuned them out for the last 6 years, and I'm hearing more and more people that aren't even going to watch it. Second thing is they know the difficulty we are with the budgets of this country and where we're headed financially, and that, you know, these smoke and mirror programs aren't going to be any different than what they gave us with Obamacare. And the third thing is they know when they're sitting in their living rooms, the economy's not doing well. We're still having more businesses close every day than are opening. We are having people that are really worried about whether they're going to have their job 6 months from now, what that job is going to look like. And so what I'd love to see the president do is come in tonight for once and try to unite America and say how we're going to get our fiscal house back in order, how we're going to restore the rule of law, how we're going to rebuild our national defense. I think you're going to see a big void and a vacuum on those areas tonight.
Well, look, do you think he's going to say a single thing about the fact that we have an $18 trillion debt that keeps growing and growing with no end in sight? Eventually, this thing has to crash. Everybody is seeing it. Do you think he'll say anything
everybody,
at all about it?
John. The president doesn't see it, and some of those individuals reflected in the polls, not all of them, because some of those polls are, they're snapshots, and it's based on how you ask the question, but there are a lot of people that don't see the fiscal dangers that we are facing as a country. I think if the president does anything, he'll do what he's consistently done, which is to say how he's cutting the lavish spending that he has been doing, but he won't talk about anything about how he's going to really get that debt under control, and he won't give any kind of economic program where the math really works.
How do you raise the capital gains tax, which anybody that took Economics 101 understands that in order to create something, you need capital formation. In order to have capital formation, you need to have an influx of cash. If you raise the capital gains tax, the opposite happens. That's supposed to be in his proposal tonight. How does that create jobs? That does the opposite.
Well, John, you just made a huge mistake as far as this administration is concerned. You've actually talked about economics, and you've actually talked about the real reason why we do some of these things. We don't have capital gains tax because we want to just let more people have more money. That's a good goal, but that's not why we do it. The reason you do capital gains is exactly what you said. You want to spur economic investment. You want this economy moving, people buying things and reselling things. That's how the economy gets going. And over again, we've seen if you have a lower capital gains tax, you have more of that. If you raise that tax up, you have less of that. What this president does, though, instead of looking at you and saying, John, let me tell you how I can get more money in your pocket by giving you a greater opportunity to work for that money and put that money in your pocket, what he has to do is say, look across the street at your neighbor. That guy has too much. He's done too good. We need to take some of his away. And that's what's continually divided this country as opposed to trying to get the economy re-going and building again.
It's redistribution of income. It's pitting one interest group against another interest group. It's taking the existing pie we have, shrinking it, and then divvying it up instead of growing the pie. And this has been going on now for 72 months. When is this guy going to get the message?
I don't think he will get the message any more than he got the message at Paris about, the enormous threat of terrorism around the world. And, to him, he just tuned that out. He thinks he can just tune out the rest of the world. And what most Americans, most thinking Americans feel today is they realize the crisis we have around the world with some of these terrorist groups, some of these extremist groups. And he also realizes what, this administration, or they realize what this administration has done to our national defense and national security. And I don't think you'll hear the president today or tonight putting off any kind of plan that starts rebuilding this military that he continues to dismantle.
President, Secretary of State still trying to make a deal with Iran, but now in the Senate, it looks like it could actually get overridden with over a 2/3 veto. What's the deal here?
Well, John, the world knows, most Americans know, that you can't deal with the threats around the world with political campaigns. That's what this administration knows how to do. They can spin it here in our papers. They can spin it here on liberal media. But what they can't do is put real solutions out there of how you deal with an enormous threat, whether it be Iran, ISIS, or even the buildup we're seeing with the Russians, of the Chinese and their militaries. And the rest of the world understands this president just wants a deal. He don't care what the deal is. Well, I think now you're getting a growing number of people in the Senate, Republicans and Democrats, that say this is just too dangerous. We can't allow this administration to give away the farm to a state as dangerous as Iran can be. And that's why I think you're seeing, and you're going to see more of these deals overridden. The same thing, John, when they tried to pull up our landmines along the DMZ between North Korea and South Korea. Everybody realized how foolish that was. I had to literally go to the floor and put an amendment on to stop them from doing that, but it was ultimately supported, and ultimately they weren't able to do it. You're going to see more of that, I think, in this upcoming Congress.
Congressman, final question. President, over the weekend, put 400, what he said, advisors, troops, if you will, in Syria. Now, we have not declared war on Assad. It's a sovereign country. We're bombing him. Now we're sending troops in. No authorization. When does this stop?
Well, John, one of the things that I spoke about this week to a large number of elected officials from around the country was that there are military actions that we should be doing in some of these terrorist situations. But I'm not prepared to join in and support them until I find out what our strategy is, what our goal is, what our exit strategy is. But even more importantly, John, until this administration comes to the table and says, this is how we're going to lay out a plan to make sure the military has the resources to do what they have and need to do. And it is ridiculous to allow them to continue on just kind of this knee-jerk reaction of what they're doing around the globe. So I'm hoping we'll able to bring them to the table to talk about those things. But so far, we haven't seen the administration willing to do that.
Is there a possibility that we can get out of this Syrian situation, Congressman? Do you see any pathway out here?
Well, John, as you know, in fact, as you probably heard me mention yesterday, I was just with Tony Blair on Thursday talking about some of these situations. And one of the things that just so frustrating is that we had ISIS defeated and we had that beaten back in 2009 and 2010, and against the advice of all of those military leaders, the administration just allowed them to rebuild and do what they're doing now. When you say, can we get out of Syria, the question is, every day, the missteps they take in other places of the world doesn't make it less likely we'll be in a military situation. It makes it more likely because this administration really has no strategy. And that's the beginning and the basis of all of this. They've got to come to the table and develop a strategy they're willing to stick with and to implement. And so far in the 6 years I've watched them, they have failed to do that.
All right, that's going to be the final word. Congressman Randy Forbes from the 4th District of Virginia. That's the Chesapeake area. Congressman, thanks for being with us.